Golden Stories here, and today you're about to witness a flight like no other. A story that begins in the soft hum of an airplane cabin, but turns into one of the most humiliating downfalls ever caught in human memory. The boarding process was smooth, polite chatter filling the aisles, until a black teenager walked confidently toward their assigned seat in first class. The ticket was clear, seat 2A, right by the window. But before they could even lower their bag, a pale hand shot out, stiff as a barricade. A white passenger leaned back in the seat with a smirk that could sour milk. No way. First class isn't for you. Try the back where you belong, he sneered, loud enough for 3 rows to hear. Gasps and awkward coughs rippled through the cabin, but he basked in the attention like a bad comedian who thought the room was on his side. The teen blinked once, then twice, as though trying to figure out if this was a prank show. But the man doubled down, shaking his head, muttering, I paid good money to sit here, and I won't have my flight ruined by. He didn't finish, but everyone understood what that unspoken word meant. Eyes darted toward the flight attendants, but none moved quickly. Some passengers snickered under their breath, as though racism was in-flight entertainment. The teenager took a breath, calm yet coiled, and slipped their backpack to the floor. The aisle grew still, every ear waiting. What happened next was no ordinary response. It was the kind of moment that flips humiliation upside down. Viewers, if you're enjoying where this story is going, don't forget to like and subscribe, because the turbulence here isn't from the plane, it's from what's about to unfold. The teenager stood there, silent for a moment, letting the weight of the man's words hang in the air like a bad smell. Then, with a sharp tilt of the head and a smile that dripped with quiet mockery, they leaned slightly closer and spoke in flawless French, rolling the syllables with Parisian finesse. Excusez-moi, monsieur, mais je crois que vous avez confondu votre arrogance avec votre billet. A few passengers chuckled nervously, not understanding the words but sensing the sting. The racist man blinked, startled, his smirk slipping as if he'd bitten into something sour. Before he could recover, the teen switched gears. ¿Qué pasa? ¿No entiendes? They fired off Spanish next, smooth and precise, like they'd been born in Madrid. Heads began to turn. One man across the aisle burst into laughter, clapping softly, while a woman whipped out her phone, recording every second. The teen wasn't done. Italian poured out next, followed by Arabic, then Mandarin. Every sentence was a slap, every language a blade slicing through the man's false superiority. The cabin was alive now, passengers leaning over their seats, whispering, 10 languages? Who even does that? The man's face flushed crimson, his mouth opening and closing like a fish stranded on dry land. Speak English, he barked finally, his voice cracking under pressure. The teenager straightened, finally granting his wish. Oh, don't worry, they replied, voice like velvet sharpened with steel. I can speak English perfectly, but unlike you, I can also communicate with half the planet. Tell me, besides hate and ignorance, what languages do you speak? The plane erupted, laughter, gasps, even a few claps. The racist shrank into his seat, pulling his arm back as if burned. And this, my viewers, is only the beginning. If you're enjoying this takedown, mate, smash that like button and subscribe, because the turbulence hasn't even started. The man slouched in his seat now, but humiliation has a way of making fools double down. He jabbed a finger toward the teen and spat, You think you're clever? You're just a show-off. People like you don't deserve first class. This section is for real travelers, not circus acts. His words dripped with venom, but the audience wasn't buying it anymore. A couple of businessmen exchanged looks, one muttering, This guy's embarrassing himself. The teenager, calm as a monk on a mountaintop, reached down, lifted their carry-on, and placed it overhead without breaking eye contact. Then, with icy sarcasm, they said, Funny you mention a circus, because you've been the clown since I walked in. The cabin exploded with laughter, one woman choking on her champagne, another passenger actually clapping like it was stand-up comedy night. The man's ears turned the color of raw steak. Flight attendants finally stepped in, thin as their professionalism stretched thin. Sir, if you continue harassing passengers, we'll have to remove you from this flight, one announced firmly. The man spluttered. Remove me? For what? He doesn't even belong here. He gestured wildly, but his audience was gone. Phones were out, cameras rolling. This wasn't just a scene anymore. It was a viral clip in the making. The teenager leaned back, buckling in, voice low enough to sting. Better fasten your seatbelt because your downfall is just taking off. Viewers, if you're loving this public meltdown, make sure you like and subscribe because trust me, the landing will be even rougher. The plane was ready for takeoff, but the cabin's real drama was already airborne. The racist man's face was a storm cloud, sweat, rage, and panic colliding as every passenger's phone captured his humiliation in high definition. He barked one last desperate line: "I'll report this airline. You'll regret letting people like him sit here." His voice cracked like cheap glass. That was the final straw. The lead flight attendant, now cold and authoritative, leaned down to eye level. "Sir, you're done. Either calm yourself or security will escort you off before this plane leaves the ground." Gasps and whispers rippled, the passengers practically salivating at the thought of his removal. Cameras zoomed in. The man stammered, his bravado draining away like spilled coffee. The teenager turned slightly, their voice calm but lethal. "You've tried to strip me of dignity in front of strangers. Instead, you've stripped yourself. Everyone here will remember you, not for class, not for success, but for ignorance." The line hit harder than turbulence. Passengers clapped, some whistled, others shouted, "Tell him!" By the time the plane roared down the runway, the man was a shadow of himself, slumped, silent, destroyed by the very spotlight he craved. The teen, meanwhile, reclined with quiet grace, owning the space he swore they didn't deserve. And that, my friends, is Golden Stories. If you found this as powerful as we did, don't just watch, like, comment, and subscribe. Because in a world where prejudice thinks it can sit first class, stories like this remind us who really owns the skies.